Welcome to MidLIFE Matters, where we celebrate women's wisdom and wit. I'm Georgian Lussier, your host, and I'm delighted to introduce today's guest, Constance Castillo. Constance made a major career change midlife and is now the airport manager in Meriden. So welcome, Constance.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. After 20 years in the corporate world, you joined aviation full-time. And as our viewers will hear, flying has been part of your childhood since, like when you were 19 days old.
That's right.
What influenced you to leave corporate and take to the skies?
Flying has always been part of my life. I grew up in a family of pilots. Both my mom and my dad were pilots, and we had an old Cessna 1949 tail dragger. Like you had said, I actually started flying with my dad when I was 19 days old. They took me on my first flight. So I always had it in me. I started a career once I got out of school, and it was very fast-paced. It required a lot of travel. I kept flying as just my hobby. I was a sales manager in the consumer products industry. Required travel, long hours. I was away from home. And just always had that inside of me that someday I want to fly. I kept it as a hobby, and whenever I was in a different part of the country, sometimes I would just go to a local airport and rent a plane or find an instructor and see that part of the country from the sky, which was nice. I kept my license current, kept my medical certificate, which you have to do every 2 years, and my flight reviews, and I just knew that if that got away from me, I might not ever get back to it. After about 20 years working in the toy and gift industry, I was laid off. And instead of jumping right back into it, I decided just take some time and really think about what I wanted to really do and what was in store for me for the rest of my life. So I slowed down and thought about aviation. I just naturally gravitated right back to it. For the first time, really in my life, I found that I had free time to volunteer. That's when I found the Civil Air Patrol, and also I rejoined the 99s organization, which is a women pilots organization. And it was really through those two organizations that got me back into the sky and back into flying.
So would you say you had an intuitive sense this was the right direction to go in without a real specific goal of, say, airport manager?
Yes.
Okay.
I knew in my heart that this is what I wanted to do, and I really felt grounded. Like I said, I gravitated towards aviation. Spent a lot of time at the airport, and took my time. Instead of responding to a lot of calls to jump back into being a sales manager and different job offers, I decided to take my time. I really took a year to figure this out and to really slow down and keep my feet on the ground.
Feet on the ground, and while you were in the air. What were some of the steps that you took? I know you had a number of different roles, and I'm sure many of our viewers don't know much about certainly the Civil Air Patrol or the 99. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I joined a local squadron, which happened to be at the airport that I grew up at, which was near my house. The Civil Air Patrol is an auxiliary of the Air Force, and they focus on leadership, aerospace, education, and search and rescue. We work with cadets that are ages 12 to 18, and as a pilot, I came in as a captain and trained in search and rescue as a mission observer, a mission scanner. I did training as an airborne photographer, and also trained as an orientation pilot, where we take cadets up for their first flight. And then we continue with a series of flight training lessons. At the time that I joined, I was actually the only female pilot that became an orientation pilot, so I was proud to be the only female in the region. We do have a couple more female pilots now, which is nice, but it's still mostly male-orientated. Besides the Civil Air Patrol, I got back into flying by rejoining the 99s, which is a Women Pilots Association. I had joined back when I got my pilot's license when I was younger, and then kind of let it drop while I was busy tending to my career, and I became active in that again since I had more free time. And became a co-chair of the Connecticut chapter, and then right now I'm actually a director for the whole New England section.
And do I understand it correctly that Amelia Earhart's name is in there with one of the charter members?
Yes, the organization was actually founded by Amelia Earhart back in 1929. At that time, she reached out to every single female licensed pilot in the world, and there were about 107 or so pilots. There was actually 99 pilots that responded and came together and formed the organization. Without coming up with a better name for it, they named it the 99s, which was for the original charter members. The organization is still strong. Today, there's probably about 5,000 members from all around the world, all female pilots.
What other jobs did you do? I know that, weren't you at Brainerd for a while?
I worked actually for a flight school, which started at the Meriden Airport. I actually started at the bottom to try to network back into aviation, just having absolutely nothing except for my skills and my pilot license. So I took a job at the local airport, actually pumping gas. So I literally started at the bottom. Fueled up planes, did desk work, and then I was recruited by a flight school. And that's when I used my background in sales and marketing and became the director of admissions. So I recruited student pilots, and I worked with the students and the flight instructors with their flight training program. We then transferred from Meriden up to Brainerd Airport, where I stayed for a few years before I actually came back to Meriden as the airport manager. So I did literally start from the bottom.
Well, what did you learn about yourself as you left being a director of sales and marketing in a very high-powered, frequent travel, corporate life, and then now you're pumping gas?
I learned with determination that you can get where you want to be. I was just actually happy doing that. It was surprising how many people, when they found out I changed careers or I was looking for jobs and that I was laid off, their first reaction would be, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And I said, "No, it's actually great." I said, "This has given me an opportunity to do something different and to do something that I've always wanted to do." And I knew that sometimes you do have to start from the bottom.
Well, that's very refreshing. Yeah, I'm sure people flying in and you're out there pumping gas had no idea of what you had left behind.
Right.
And you were open to starting a whole new part of your life.
It was refreshing.
I would think it would be. Yeah, midlife. Back to the Civil Air Patrol, I'm very intrigued by that. I know that when we spoke, you talked about you did water safety training, and could you talk a little bit about typical assignments you might do with the Civil Air Patrol?
A lot of search and rescue training. During the summer, we do a patrol which is called the Long Island Sound Patrol, and we work with the Coast Guard. So we fly 3-hour missions over Long Island at 1,000 feet, and we're looking for boaters in distress, people in distress, oil slicks, whatnot. We also do a lot of storm assessment. Because I was doing a lot of flying over water, and I grew up flying out to the islands in New England, to Block Island and the Vineyard and the Cape, I had the opportunity to take a course to become water survival certified, and that was actually through the 99s that they offered this. In case of aircraft ditching, they actually train you what to do. So that was pretty intense training, probably one of the scariest things I've ever done, but very rewarding.
So would you be someone that if someone were in distress in the water, they might lower down?
No, our planes don't do that.
Okay.
Helicopters would do that, so the Coast Guard would go in. What we do is basic sightings. We communicate with the Coast Guard to try to pinpoint where somebody could be in distress and then communicate.
It seems like there would have to be extremely close communications, right?
There is. So it's a lot of radio work.
And protocols and
a lot of rules and
mapping
regulations and coordinates and navigation.
Who's doing what so that nothing is missed. And something I realized you were awarded was the Amelia Earhart Scholarship?
That's correct. 2 years ago, I was honored with an Amelia Earhart Scholarship, which is through the 99s. And with the scholarship, it was fully funded training for an advanced rating. I had my private pilot's license, and since getting the scholarship, I was able to continue with my further rating. So I've gotten my instrument license, my commercial license, my multi-engine license, and I just found out actually recently that I was awarded another scholarship, and I'm going to use this one to continue with my certified flight instructor training so that someday I'll be teaching.
Wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I mentioned to you that I met a woman whose daughter is 14 and is interested in being a pilot at some point. So would the 99s be a place for a young girl to connect with? How would someone like that find out more what the opportunities are and what's involved?
It's a great question, because there's a fantastic program that's actually up at the New England Air Museum, and it's called Women Take Flight. And the 99s participate in that, along with the Civil Air Patrol and any other aviation organization that offers training. It's a full day in November where the museum actually invites all of the Brownie troops and Girl Scout troops throughout the state, but it's also open to the public. There's booths and speakers all day long with female aviators. We've had astronauts there. There's engineers, there's air traffic controllers, there's FAA, test pilots, you name it. Any type of career that somebody wants to get into that's involved with aviation. It's a great place to go and to talk and meet and find out more of what they can do.
Who would be the person or what organization to contact if someone wanted to find out more specifics?
They can talk to the 99s.
Okay.
Civil Air Patrol offers programs for 12-year-olds, 12 to 18-year-olds.
Okay.
Just go to a local airport and talk to pilots. The EAA, which is the Experimental Aircraft Association, also offers what's called Young Eagle flights. And they'll take children from 8 years old and up in a plane for the first time.
So
a lot of opportunities.
The sky's the limit.
Exactly.
Right? Especially for a young person. And the Civil Air Patrol, I understand, has a Wreaths Across America initiative?
It's called the Wreaths Across America program, which the Civil Air Patrol participates in.
Okay.
It's a nationwide program where for $15 somebody can sponsor a wreath, which is then laid on a veteran's grave at different VA cemeteries throughout the country. And I believe they do about 350 different locations. And Civil Air Patrol participates in ground ceremonies. The first year that I was in the Civil Air Patrol, we did have a flyover over the state cemetery here, and I was one of the crew members on one of the planes. So we flew in a single line formation that was about 3.5 miles long with about 7 aircraft. And at a certain moment during the ceremonies on the ground, the planes were instructed to fly over. And it's a period of silence, which is quite beautiful. So I experienced that from the sky. Last year, I participated in the ground ceremonies, and my dad is actually a Navy veteran, so he's actually at the state cemetery now. So it was nice to be on the ground and be at the grave site.
And do the planes actually carry the wreath?
No, it's just a
Part
flyover.
of the ceremony.
It's part of the ceremony.
Absolutely beautiful.
The wreaths are actually delivered on a convoy of trucks that for the East Coast they start in Maine, and they drive state by state and they deliver the wreaths and then eventually end up down at Arlington National Cemetery.
Let's talk about the Meriden Airport, where you are now as manager. There was recently an article in the paper that I saw this year, and it talked about the expansion plans. There's a full-time mechanic. There's a flight school that's in the works or is being contemplated, new hangars, an annual fly-in event, and I know you had a major project with painting a compass rose. So tell us what's happening in Meriden.
There's a lot going on at the airport. It's a great little airport. It used to be called one of the best secrets in Connecticut. It's been around since probably the early 1900s. Recently, it's just gone through a lot of renovations. The city's behind the airport, and we have a full-time mechanic now that's there 7 days a week. There wasn't any maintenance for a while, and we have a 24-hour fuel station. We try to have the cheapest fuel in Connecticut, so we do get a lot of pilots from other airports and out-of-state that come in to visit us. And we just, as of this week, we're bringing in a flight school, which is an independent business. And that's 3 pilots that are local tenants who are starting the business. So we're happy to have them there. They've got several planes, so we'll start having students and have the flight school very active at the airport. Last year, we started a annual fly-in and a safety festival. A lot of airports do fly-ins and car shows, and we wanted to do something a little different to bring the community in. We started a safety festival and brought in police cars, fire department, ambulance. We had a Lifestar helicopter. We had booths there. We had food. We had about 1,000 people attend it, and about 45 planes flew in. We had judging and all types of activities. So we're going to do it again this year, and we hope to do it every year thereafter.
What month is it planned for?
This is for October. It's going to be
Okay.
October 3rd.
And the painting of the Compass Rose. Tell
Yes,
us about
that was a huge project that the 99s undertook last summer. The 99s is known for doing air marking. And this goes back to, I believe, the 1930s. And before they had instruments and real navigation throughout the country when aviation first really started, they came up with a plan to actually paint water towers and barns with the names of the towns. And they had a plan to actually paint about 13,000 different sites, and this was right before World War II. They started painting the barns with city markings, and then the war erupted, and they realized that actually painting these sites would give the enemy the location of some strategic cities throughout the country. So then the women went back out and they actually blacked out all of the names of the cities. After the war, they continued with the tradition, and they still painted barns, water towers, and they started painting markings on airports, the name of the airport, the frequency to use. And another symbol that they're known for is called a compass rose. Now, a compass rose it's a symbol that orientates magnetic north and cardinal headings, so you have north, south, east, west, and then the compass points in between. And it happened to be at Meriden Airport that, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago, they had somebody come in and survey, and they did a compass rose on the run-up area, but it was very simple with just the headings. So it was straight lines pointing to north, south, east, west. And so the surveying was already done. The magnetic direction was already there. So what the 99s does is come in and paint a beautiful symbol that incorporates all of the magnetic headings in blue and white, and also that incorporates the 99s logo in the middle. So it took a team of about maybe 25 women and from the 99s, friends, family, and we had some children there. And it took us 8 hours. Sometimes it could take 2 days, and we got it done in 1 day, and had a team out there and painted a beautiful symbol that's on the airport. So we're proud of that.
Yes.
So pilots can come in and actually use this to swing their compasses in the aircraft. So they'll position the aircraft on the actual symbol and do a compass swing.
So it's symbolic, but actually very useful.
It's very functional,
yes.
too. So.
Yes. Is there a typical day at the airport for an airport manager?
Not really.
Yeah.
Every single day is different. It's determined by the weather and by the pilots that fly in, as far as what type of activity is going to be there, what type of plane is going to be there. So it's interesting.
What type of aircrafts come in?
A lot of single engine. We do have some twin engines that come in. We have a helicopter training center that's close by, and they use the airport for a lot of their training. They actually hover over our compass rose, so it's kind of neat to hear them saying hovering compass rose at Meriden. And we get the Coast Guard helicopter flies in on occasion to do training. We get Black Hawks that fly in. Some small private charters and corporate aircraft. But a lot of antique planes come in, some open cockpit biplanes, experimental aircraft. So it's a variety.
Is it ever a destination point where people fly in and then want to know where's the nearest restaurant? Or
People are always flying in looking for food.
Really? So you can help them. You can be an ambassador for Meriden to an extent, right?
That's right.
Well, it sounds like you're going to get busier with having the flight school there? I mean, there must be a certain amount of coordination. And
Mhm.
what hours typically are you as the airport manager at the airport?
The office is open 9 to 5 in the winter,
Mhm.
9 to 7 on weekends. As it gets light out later, our hours will extend, so kind of accommodate the weather and the pilots.
And is it correct that I'm recalling you had a woman fly in with a Black Hawk? You heard this like young voice, and
Oh, that's right.
and then she showed up, and you were like, okay.
It's whenever I hear a female on the radio, I do make a point to go out and meet them and find out more about them, because there aren't that many women pilots. It's amazing that out of all of the licensed pilots in the world, only 6% are actually female.
Was she a younger woman that landed the Black Hawk? I mean,
Yeah.
that was like an unusual, right?
Yeah.
I certainly am aware in the military that women are making great strides with being the first. I noticed that there is a woman who became, I believe she's with the Marine Corps, that became the first Blue Angel.
Blue Angels, yes.
And
Yeah,
so from
that's
time
amazing.
to time I watch, just now that I'm more aware of it, speaking with you and having had the commissioner on with the Veterans Affairs, she talked about women in the military, so I'm getting my consciousness raised a little bit about what women are doing.
The possibilities are just endless. There's so many opportunities out there.
And what do you attribute it to that there aren't more women pilots? I mean, 6% is still pretty low.
I think women, they're not aware of the opportunities, or they think they can't do it, and that it's still a man's world. You know, I do talk to a lot of women who say, well, I'm not mathematically inclined, or I don't, you know, I'm not very good at weather. And you don't have to be a meteorologist, or you don't have to be a rocket scientist or a mathematician. You just have to be able to learn a little bit of all of those aspects. And that's what training is, very focused, it's very thorough, and they can do it. And I just think they don't. It's stereotypes that they just don't think it's for them.
And what about the cost? Is it prohibitive? I was reading some of the material you provided, and at one time visionaries were projecting that, one of the articles written about you, there would be a plane in every garage, you know, and yes,
Right.
you know, the article is saying, well, that didn't happen. I thought, well, I never was aware people were projecting that, but I imagine expense is part of it, right, in terms of people thinking about taking up flying as
There's
a hobby.
it's expensive to own an aircraft. You have to keep up with the maintenance, but there's other avenues that you can still fly. You can become part of a flight club. You can rent aircraft. People are always looking for partnerships. With the Civil Air Patrol, we're all volunteers. So there's a lot of different flying opportunities besides just owning an aircraft.
So I would imagine the training, the hours that you need to put in would probably be the upfront
Right.
expense.
That's correct.
And there are
That's
there
correct.
are
And there's-
things like scholarships.
There's
like you got.
scholarships. There's different flight training loans that you can get, and different programs. So there's always a will when there's a way.
Okay. And let's think about you a little bit in terms of, certainly you've made such a major career shift, and I talk about the show as celebrating women's wisdom and wit, and I do believe that we get wiser as we age. We kind of just can't help but learn from our experience, and we get to be more resilient, and many people think we get better at coping with adversity as we age. There's a lot of aging studies going on and things we learn about ourselves. So if you could write a letter to your 25-year-old self, what might you say? Dear Constance.
I think I'd say that there's a time for everything that you want to do. The time might not be now, but just stay focused. Keep your eyes wide open, and the opportunity will come. Just make your path clear and have goals, and you will get there.
And what about at 40?
Later in life, I'd probably say stay healthy so that you can enjoy the things that you love to do, and do the things while you can, and do everything for as long as you can, and have no regrets.
Well, certainly your decision to leave the corporate world and start over again at the bottom rung, pumping gas is the specific situation, shows a lot of bravery. Did it feel like you were being brave?
No, I think it just felt right.
It felt right.
And I came full circle back to where I started. I think I had the best of both worlds. I enjoyed the corporate life. I had aviation as a hobby growing up, and then now I'm back into it full time, and I'm actually managing the airport that I flew at when I was 19 days old. I think that's special.
Well, that's a beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I'm going to close with a quote that you provided. Tap into your passion and your life's work, and you will be truly alive. And that's something that you carry in your wallet?
That's right.
Yes, and
I
that
keep
is
it close.
attributed to a Seeds of Hope, and a woman was identified with that. It sounds like it was a little something you picked up along the way. So
I picked it up a long time ago, and I kept it in my wallet, so I still have it.
well, thank you so much. That's a beautiful thing for us to remember as we close. And please tune in to hear from other fascinating women in future segments of MidLIFE Matters. I'm Georgian Lussier, your host. Thanks for tuning in.